The words were stamped across the page in bold type, sterile and certain. The candidate lacks the physical capacity for sustained operations and the combat instinct necessary for real-world sniper roles. Commander Rick Halstead's signature sat beneath the evaluation. Neat, deliberate, final. He hadn't spoken those words aloud in the interview room. He hadn't needed to. Jordan Wells remembered reading them 3 times before folding the paper in half and sliding it into the inside pocket of her uniform jacket. No eye contact. No acknowledgement of her record, her recommendations, her numbers, just a file dismissed by a man who had already decided what kind of soldier she could be. Before ever seeing what she had done. That was 3 years ago. Now it was nearly 11,000 feet up in the Hindu Kush. The sky above Nangarhar province was moonless. The darkness thick enough to swallow sound. Jordan lay prone in the dirt, the cold biting through the sleeves of her Overwatch gear. Her breathing was slow, controlled. Her scope cut through the dark. The thermal image of the valley below, shifting with the rhythm of the wind. It was close to 0200. No air support. No drone cover. The night was quiet. Until it wasn't. Her radio crackled to life with a clipped, panicked voice. SEAL Team 6. Their emergency beacon was active. Calls were coming in on open frequencies. Heavy fire. 2 men down. Requesting immediate fire support. Then the call sign, Falcon 6. She knew that voice. Halstead. Jordan didn't move. She let the silence hang for a beat too long. Her gloved finger still resting against the trigger guard. The irony hit harder than the wind. He was out there somewhere below. Pinned in the same kind of narrow canyon she'd once trained to fight in. The same man who'd written her off was now calling for help. And the only sniper with eyes on the fight was the one he said didn't belong. She blinked once and reached for her Kestrel 60A. Time to get wind data. No ceremony. No pride. Just the job. The same way it had always been. This time, though, the judgment wouldn't come from a file. It would come from what happened next. Her name is Jordan Wells. She was 33 years old, the night she found herself alone on that cold Afghan ridge. But the story started long before. She grew up in Helena, Montana, on a stretch of quiet land backed up against the mountains. Her parents were gone early, a car crash when she was 6, and her grandmother, Evelyn Wells, stepped in. Evelyn wasn't like most grandmothers. She had flown B-24 seconds during World War II as part of the Women's Air Force service pilots and had a stare that could freeze a wild Mustang. She believed in structure, early mornings, and keeping your word. Jordan never forgot any of it. By the time Jordan was 10, she could break down and reassemble a rifle faster than most grown men. Evelyn didn't just teach her how to shoot. She taught her how to breathe, how to feel wind across her cheek, and use it like a ruler. Jordan took that focus into competition, winning her first state tree gun event at 15. She kept winning. By 18, recruiters already knew her name. She didn't enlist right away. She earned a physics degree from Montana State, but the Army was always waiting in the wings. When she did join, it was the 82nd Airborne that took her, sending her into long-range recon training. It wasn't long before her instructors noticed something different. Jordan didn't just shoot well. She understood shooting. She could calculate ballistic drops, spin drift, and crosswind drift in her head, faster than most could open a tablet. And she stayed calm, even when everything else broke down. At Fort Moore, where the U.S. Army's sniper course pushed students past the edge of comfort, Jordan rose to the top. She graduated as honor graduate, the only woman in her class, and the only one who never once missed a qualifying shot. Her instructors called her unnerving, too calm, too quiet. But her results couldn't be ignored. Everything she did came back to Evelyn. Discipline, stillness, responsibility, not just the shot, but why you take it. Jordan didn't see herself as special. She just did what needed doing. She learned early that if no one believed you could, that didn't mean you couldn't. It just meant they wouldn't see it coming. It was a government-issue office, windowless and quiet, with fluorescent lights that buzzed just enough to make the silence louder. Jordan sat across from Commander Rick Halstead, a stack of her records untouched on the desk between them. The folder was thick, 21 confirmed kills, 2 Bronze Stars, a Silver Star, a decade of frontline deployments with the 82nd Airborne. None of it mattered. Halstead didn't open the folder. He had already made his decision. He handed her a single sheet of paper, printed and signed. Jordan read it once. Then again. The language was clinical. Candidate demonstrates excellent marksmanship, but lacks the physical resilience and instinctive aggression necessary for sniper instruction within a Tier 1 operational framework. No specifics. No mention of her combat record. Just assumptions. Dressed in official terms, she didn't argue. She had learned not to. Jordan just sat there, eyes still on the page, while Halstead leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, like the conversation was already over. He offered her a tight nod and a final comment as she stood. "You don't quite fit the profile we're looking for." She walked out without saying a word. The paper folded once and slid into her jacket pocket. Her boots echoed against the tile. The only sound in the hallway, outside. The air was cooler than it should have been for May. She stood by the edge of the parking lot for a long minute, watching a pair of helicopters cross the sky in formation. She had trained men who flew those birds. She had covered their landings. She had taken shots that saved lives, but now she was just another name scratched off the list before they even looked. Jordan didn't cry. She didn't get angry. Not outwardly. She got quiet. Colder. Focused. She knew what that paper meant. And what it didn't. It didn't mean she wasn't good enough. It meant someone with power had chosen not to see her. That choice would follow her into the future. And the next time someone needed a shot that no one else could take, she would still be ready. Whether they believed in her or not. The wind came in sharp off the ridge. Dry and fast. Carrying the kind of cold that gets into bone, Jordan Wells lay flat against the rock, tucked into a shallow depression just below the crest. Her overwatch position had taken 3 hours to hike into, and nearly as long to prep. It was a long night, like so many others. Extraction window was narrow. Visibility was poor. No moon. Just outlines and shadows and trust in her gear. Her rifle rested steady against her shoulder. A custom-built 300 Norma Magnum. Free-floating barrel. Schmidt and Bender PM 2-scope dialed in to 8 power. Beside her, the Kestrel 5700 blinked steady data. Wind speeds fluctuating between 18 and 23 knots. Temperatures had dropped below freezing 2 hours ago. She tracked drift and drop using the Applied Ballistics app on her wrist-mounted tablet, checking every few minutes as gusts shifted across the valley. At 11:19 p.m., her radio came to life. Not just chatter, a tone. Emergency beacon. Then a voice. SEAL Team 6. Taking fire. Multiple casualties. Requesting immediate support. Coordinates came fast. She ran them against her position. Less than 2 clicks out. Line of sight. No one else could see into that canyon. No air support. MQ-9 Reaper drones were grounded in Jalalabad due to weather. The QRF was rolling but wouldn't reach them for at least 40 minutes. That's a lifetime when you're pinned and bleeding. Then the voice came again. Familiar this time. Not just rank and calm under fire. The rhythm, the cadence. Falcon 6. It was Halstead. She froze. For a second. It wasn't wind she felt on her face. It was 3 years ago. Sitting in that office, holding the paper that said she wasn't enough. Now the man behind that decision was trapped in a kill zone, asking for help. He didn't know she could give. Jordan didn't speak. Not yet. She watched the thermal feeds stabilize in her scope. Dozens of heat signatures, static contact, and flanking movement. A well-executed ambush. She didn't need orders. She needed math. Her left hand moved to the rangefinder. The Kestrel updated. Temperature down to -5. Full value wind. She started building the shot plan. Calm. Precise. Focused. There was only one way this would end. And it wasn't with silence. She heard the call sign again. Falcon 6. She already knew. But now it was confirmed. The voice belonged to Commander Rick Halstead, the same man who had written her off with a paragraph, the same one whose approval she'd never needed, but whose dismissal still lived in her memory like frostbite. She didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Just the knowledge that he was down there now, in the dark, in trouble. And she was the only one in a position to help. Jordan switched to the emergency frequency. Voice calm. Measured. She identified herself as Overwatch Alpha and requested a grid update. One of the SEALs responded with tight, clipped urgency. They were taking fire from 3 elevated positions, 2 men wounded. Their sniper was out. An enemy shooter had them locked down from the west slope. Mortar fire had pinned them against the canyon wall. They couldn't move. They couldn't return fire. They were running out of time. She started building the plan. New emotion. Just inputs and data. Her Kestrel updated wind speed, 22 knots. Full crosswind. Temperature read -5 Celsius. Distance was everything. Her thermal scope picked up the first gunner. Hunkered in brush behind a PKM. 1,120 meters. The mortar team, working fast, was at 1440. The spotter on the western ridge was tucked deep, 1637 meters. All of them were at the edge or beyond standard sniper engagement range. She didn't hesitate. She adjusted her dope in real time. Elevation, windage, spin drift. Even the Coriolis effect mattered at this distance. Subtle, but real. She factored it in. Most shooters would have relied on the ballistic calculator. But she did it in her head. Years of practice. Years of wind. Years of watching deer cross open fields in Montana and learning how to lead a moving target without overthinking it. Her hands didn't shake. Her breath stayed slow. Her cheek settled into the stock like it always had. This wasn't new. It was math. It was clarity. And it was hers alone to solve. While the rest of the valley descended into panic, Jordan became still, not cold, just focused. The rifle was quiet in her hands, but everything was about to change. Through her thermal scope, Jordan spotted them moving fast along the shadowed bend of the canyon. 12 heat signatures, spaced low and tight. Advancing through a dead space the SEALs couldn't see from below, but Jordan had elevation, she had angle, and she had seconds. They were closing in at 700 meters. Shifting with the terrain, rifles slung low and tucked close to their bodies. The gusts hit hard across the ridgeline, swirling from northwest to southeast, rising then collapsing like a wave. The wind was wild. The shots would be nearly impossible, but not to her. She didn't fight the wind. She read it, felt it. The same way she had learned in Montana when the land rolled wide and the air told stories, she let her breath move with it. The way her grandmother had taught her, ride the gusts. Don't chase the break. Trust the rhythm. One slow inhale, one squeeze. The first shot cracked through the night. One body dropped mid-stride. No reaction time. The second came half a second later. Then a shift. She displaced 5 meters left. Low crawl. Barely lifting her elbows. 2 more shots from the new angle. The squad started to scatter. She stayed ahead of them, adjusting holdover and windage on instinct. No time for recalculations. Her Kestrel beeped updates, but she wasn't reading anymore. She was inside it. Each shot landed with violent certainty. She moved again. New rock. New elevation. Another 2 down. They tried to return fire, but couldn't pin her. She was never in the same place twice. A whisper in the rocks, a phantom pulse in the wind. 8 down. 9. 10. 90 seconds from the first shot to the last. The final two fighters dropped flat and vanished behind boulders, crawling back the way they came. The assault line had broken. The momentum had died with their squad mates. The SEALs below wouldn't even know what had happened until later. They'd never see her position, never know her name. Jordan exhaled and reset her posture. She chambered the next round and scanned for more movement. Her heartbeat didn't race. Her breathing never changed. Just math. Just wind. Just her and the rifle. And no one left to stop her. The first sign of the quick reaction force was the low thump of rotors rising over the horizon just after 5 o'clock in the morning. The light was starting to break, soft and gray across the ridge. Jordan didn't flinch. She stayed prone, eyes on the valley, scanning for movement. As the Apaches cleared the last pockets of resistance, the Black Hawks dropped in behind cover, pulled out the wounded first. Then the rest of the SEAL team. She stayed on the scope until the final tail rotor disappeared into the distance. Only then did she let herself exhale. She had been on that ridge for over 8 hours. No sleep. 17 shots fired. None wasted. 3 days later, the encrypted message came through her contractor channel. It was from Halstead. He kept it short. He acknowledged her actions had saved his team. He admitted his past evaluation was based on assumption, not experience. He said he was wrong. He had already submitted her for a civilian commendation. More than that, he wanted to know if she would consider coming in to help train his sniper section. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she typed a single sentence in reply. "I'll see you in December." The reunion was held in Virginia Beach. Plain rented space. No uniforms. No fanfare. Halstead met her at the front door. He didn't say much, just nodded and opened the door. Inside, the whole team was standing. Every man she had protected. One of them, the youngest, stood off to the side, his arm still in a sling, a thin scar running across his cheek. She remembered his voice calling out over the radio that night. He was alive. Halstead handed her a wooden plaque. She turned it over in her hands and read the inscription, "Burned into the grain." For the one who answered when no one else could. She didn't cry. She didn't make a speech. She just nodded once and said thank you. It wasn't victory. It wasn't revenge. It was something quieter, something heavier, something earned. And when she walked out of that building an hour later, the cold wind against her face felt just like home. The land stretched wide around her, open and quiet, just the way she remembered. Jordan Wells had come home to Montana not with fanfare or medals, but with a purpose that ran deeper than recognition. The old ranch, passed down through her family for 3 generations, was now a training ground. She ran a long-range marksmanship program for veterans and law enforcement officers who needed more than just range time. They came for the discipline, the stillness, the clarity that she had lived by. Her cabin sat at the edge of a long field that sloped gently toward the tree line. Inside, the walls were simple, warm wood, clean lines, no clutter. Above her desk hung 2 things: her grandmother's World War II sharpshooter medal, burnished from age and time, and just beside it, the plaque from SEAL Team 6, for the one who answered when no one else could. They weren't trophies. They were anchors, reminders of where she came from, and why she kept showing up. She rose before the sun most mornings, by 5:45 a.m. She was walking the range, boots brushing through tall grass, breath visible in the cool air. Her students would be up soon, dragging their rifles and notes, yawning through the cold. She didn't shout. She didn't posture. She just watched. When one of them flinched on the trigger or hesitated with their wind call, she stepped behind them, adjusted their stance with a tap to the elbow or shoulder, and spoke in the same calm tone her grandmother used with her. Not like that. Let the wind speak before you do. It wasn't about hitting targets. Not really. It was about learning how to be still when everything around you moved too fast. How to trust the space between beats Jordan had lived a life at the edge of precision and consequence. Now she lived it in the quiet. She didn't wear her medals. She didn't talk about Afghanistan unless someone asked. Most never did. They just listened, learned, and carried something forward. And when the wind moved across the plains just right, she would stand still, eyes closed, and hear her grandmother's voice again. Some legacy don't echo. They whisper,